today I wanted to add some into the house. So it has a bedroom now, the front room, kitchen area, as well as the bathroom. So got some detail added into the house today. And then I want to get into player movement so I can start walking around. And to make future development cycles faster, I've already made a movement pack. You've probably seen this, the mobile VR movement pack. So I'm just going to import this. Again, I don't need the demo or the documentation or the prefabs. I just want the scripts. And there's quite a few different ways to move. 7 different ways. There's the waypoint system, the navigation mesh movement, a Bluetooth controller. There's the auto walk, auto fly. There's an advanced walk, which allows for jumping, and it has gravity. And then there's look to walk, which walks when you look down. And that's going to be added to the VR main component itself. So I like auto walk. Now auto walk, and most of these are going to add a character controller. So we need to put the center of that down a little bit. -1, actually, if the character is a height of 2. And just by doing that, I don't know if my house has colliders, but it looks like it does. Nope. And I'm falling. So the house doesn't have colliders on, at least for the floor. I'm just going to add a box collider for now. So I'll be able to walk through the walls. But that's okay because I really don't want these box colliders. I want to have, because I'm going to bake this down into a mesh. The entire house almost. Maybe the rooms will be separated, but. So with that, I just click to walk and then I click to stop. So now I can walk around the house. So you don't have to use the again, you don't have to go to the asset store. I have tutorials for almost all of these movement examples on the channel, so check out the I think I have a movement playlist if you want to look at different ways to do movement. We can walk around, and the cool thing about this is we could build it so that it supports every VR device, including ones without any button, because we could put the waypoint system in, which lets you move around based on gaze input only, or we could use the look walk, which also lets you move by gaze input only. And we could provide support for Bluetooth controller. So essentially we could have a settings or an options menu that lets you pick whether you want to use a Bluetooth controller or auto walk or look walk based on what VR device you have. But without getting too complicated, let's just leave it at the at auto walk for now. So I can walk around like this. Now my character looks too short. It looks like a kid's height here. So I probably want to raise the camera up, but I may also consider shrinking the environment because the camera is at a height of 2, which is 2 meters high, and that's a good size for a human. And essentially in this case I almost would prefer keeping my character at a height of 2 and shrinking the environment to match. But if I were to raise the head up to a 3, that's about 9 feet tall. That's a pretty tall person. So I guess the center, the height of the character controller is going to need to be 3, and it's going to need to be negative 1.5 for the center of it. And I guess that width or radius is okay, 0.5. And that feels like it's too big. So maybe 2.5 is... It's going to be easier to do 2.4 because of this offset. It's going to be negative 1.2. So trying out a height of 2.4. And it seems a little short for the doorknob. Let's go for 2.6. And I'm going to leave it at 2.6 until I can test it out in VR. Because sometimes in VR it feels a lot different than what you think you see on the Unity screen. So this looks kind of too high for some of these kitchen appliances, but we'll try it out in VR and leave it at 2.6 for now. So we got movement done. We may switch to that later, but I think auto walk is fine for now. And then the next thing I want to do today is interacting with objects. We've already interacted with objects. So I'm going to bring in the simple items. So again, this is a $10 pack, and it has a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going to bring this in. And while I'm at it, I'm going to get Simple Sky, because Simple Sky is a really cool free sky dome. And we've already made a sky dome. I wanted to show how to make a sky dome from scratch and apply a texture to it. But in this case, I'm going to switch back over to the using the Simple Sky, because for one, it matches the 3D models that I have, and for two, it's a really cool sky dome where you can change from night to day. I'm going to select the sky dome and delete it. We're not going to use that sky dome anymore, and I should have Simple Sky, and there's a prefab with the sky dome. And let me just focus on that to show you what it looks like. It's just the dome. I don't believe there's not a ground on it, so I'll have to add a ground plane perhaps, but because I'm indoors, I might not have to. So it's a simple sky dome. It has this on-lit texture as the shader, so on-lit works good for mobile VR. And there is a offset on it, and if I change the offset, that changes where it's essentially at on this texture. And so that'll change it from night to day. You can kind of see the effect on that. And I use this for a time travel effect on my recent Ludum Dare game. But it also has the sun and the moon. So really nice sky dome. I'm going to reset the position and the offset. 1 is going to be in the middle of the day. And you could see that it's not that much bigger than my house, so maybe I'll increase the scale by 10. And when I'm looking out the window, I might see some of the gray, so I might want to bring this down a little ways. Let me see what it looks like to look at the sky dome out the window. Oh, I fell because I could fall through the walls. So it looks fine. I'll need to add a ground plane and probably some exterior props. But using the new sky dome, and we also have the simple items, I'm going to bring in an axe. And I want to be able to interact with this object, so I'm going to give it a box collider. I could give it a mesh collider, but I think box collider is fine, and it's probably a little bit easier for the math behind the scenes. And so I'm also going to add a interactive object. And giving it the interactive object script, we did that on a previous day. And that's just going to let me interact with it, and it should give it an outline. So that's what I'm looking for. I want to pick this item up. And there's going to be a couple of different ways to do this. I think what I'm going to try to do is add a script to it in addition to interactive object. Call it pickup object. And then I'll be able to add pickup object to anything. And the player will be able to pick that up as long as it has an interactive object script and a pickup object script. So I'm going to add a script, C# script, I'm going to call it pickup object. This is a script that is going to require a interactive object script. I can't think of any situation you would need to pick up an item without having that outline and interaction. So I'm going to use the require component attribute. And I'm going to say a require component type of interactive object. Now, interactive object requires something as well, or it should, I guess. It should require a collider of some type. But I guess I've taken that out. So in order to have a pickup object, you have to have the interactive object, because the interactive object is going to cover all of this stuff as far as interaction and dealing with the gaze input module, what we've already dealt with. We don't want to duplicate that work. We just want to do something else. And in this case, if I add an event trigger for pointer down or pointer click, then when you click on this item, it will we'll send it to the pickup object script. So the pickup object script is going to move my transform and probably my parent onto the player, which is VR main. So I want to make it a child of VR main, and actually I want to make it a child of the camera. So the VR main should have the tag of player because the VR main is the player. So I'm going to get access to the main camera or the player. In this case, I think I'm going to use the camera. So I'm going to say private transform the VR camera. And then when the script starts, we'll say VR cam is equal to the camera mains transform. And we're going to need a public function for move to player's hand. We'll make it return void for now. And when this happens, we want to set it as a child of the main camera. So we'll say transform.parent is equal to VR cam. And we're going to want to set the position and the rotation at some value, and it's probably going to be different for each object. So I'm going to make a public hand location, but I'm thinking I might have this as an actual game object on the player's hand. Otherwise we could make a vector 3. We're going to do a vector 3 hand position offset. And let's do the same thing for a hand rotation. So we got the vector 3 hand position and the vector 3 hand rotation. And let's just do a public transform for the hand mounting position. And I'll make this an actual game object on which is a child of VR main, the main camera. If we add a VR body, so it has an avatar, this game object probably will be moved to the avatar's hand, which is on a separate game object. But for now, let's just make a game object. I'm going to call it hand mount. Mounting position. Hand mounting position, and that's the spot where the default spot where something is going to get attached to the hand. To test this out, let me make a cube, and I'm going to make it pretty small. And it needs to be visible from the camera. There it is. It's out of the screen over here, so I'm going to move it back this way. So there it is in the lower left-hand corner. I should have been moving the hand mounting position game object when I did that. Not the cube. The cube should be at 0, 0, 0. All right, we're getting it back on the screen here. I'm going to move it a little bit further away. And I think that looks okay. We're going to fix the number a little bit, 0.37 or 0.38. And then we got a negative 0.5 and a 0.8. That looks okay. I'm going to copy this component so that when we go back into editor mode and it resets, I can paste the component values. And now whenever we play the game, we should have the hand mounting position and I'm going to delete the cube. And the hand mounting position is what we're going to put on the script for the axe. But I don't want to drag this onto the script every single time. So I will make this child 0. And I'm just going to access it that way. So it's going to be a private transform hand mounting position, and that is the VR cameras get child 0. So the transform.parent is going to be the hand mounting position, and the transform dot local position is vector30, and the transform local rotation quaternion dot identity, which is the same, essentially the same thing as calling a 0 rotation. And then we'll want to increase the position based on by adding this to it, so that we can have so that we can move the position of the axe based on setting the value on the axe. So we'll say the transform local position plus equals hand position. And transform local rotation Euler angles plus equals hand rotation. So let me take that back. We're not going to do set the local rotation. We're going to set the local position to 0, and then we're going to increase it by whatever this is. And then for the rotation, we're just going to set the Euler angles, the transform Euler angles to the hand rotation. And when I click on this object, I'm going to want a new event, and that is the function on the pickup object for move to the player's hand. All right, so I picked it up. Now I just need to modify the values on the public and on the public variables for the hand rotation, hand position, and the hand rotation. I could test it out in the editor real quick by changing the rotation here. Probably easier if I just go into the scene, focus on it, press E. I press Z to change that from local to world. And I think that looks pretty good. I could probably raise it up a little bit. So I want negative 88. Then we want a negative 228. And a negative 30. So negative 88, negative 240, negative 30. And the position looks okay for me at 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to copy this component, get out of play mode, paste those component values, and go back to pick up the axe. Now this interactive object script actually fires a pointer down, pointer up events when I look at the object for max gaze time. So if I look at this for 3 seconds, it should automatically pick that up. And the rotation definitely is not right. And I guess that's because it's getting set to the world's rotation, not the local. So let me try this again. Transform.local Euler angles is equal to hand rotation. All right, now I've picked up the object. And now I want to attack with it. So, and chop my house into pieces. No, I don't think I could do that. But I do want to attack with it. And then I should be able to just add almost any object into here and give it a interactive object pickup object script, and I should be able to pick that up. Okay, so here we got the chainsaw. I'm going to add it needs a box collider. I'm going to add an interactive object, pickup object, and I obviously haven't set the rotation or the position yet, but I want to do that in play mode anyways. So, it seems like something weird is happening. I can't, I'm still looking at it, but it must be the distance. The distance is set to 5. I wonder if I just remove the box collider and add a mesh collider. Okay, so I've found a really interesting bug, or I don't know if it's a bug, but I found an interesting problem where I can't. So watch what happens when I look at the chainsaw. It selects there, but right in the middle of it, the selection goes away, and then when I look down this way, it comes back. And it's really weird because the chainsaw has a box collider, and that whole area it should be selecting the whole time. And so I'm doing a debug dot draw a line from the camera's position to where the raycast is going, and it's staying in the scene for 10 seconds. And so what you'll see is when I go like this, it selects, deselects, selects again, deselects, and you'll see that what happened was it selected from here, then this whole area it didn't select, and then out here it did. And I have a hard time figuring out what's going on, but it looks like it's associated with the character controller, because if I select VR main right now, I guess somewhere through here it's the raycast isn't working because it's hitting the character controller or something. So if I turn off the character controller and I do this again, it selects for the entire area. So that's what I would expect to see, where you can see it clearly hits the box collider the entire ways. And the character controller turned on, it selects part of it, not in the middle, and then a little bit down there. And it surely is casting through the character controller, but so I don't know what to do here, because I could put the character controller on a different layer, but that's not going to help, because then the character controller is going to fall through the ground. Okay, I think I've fixed it. I can look at the entire chainsaw now. And it acts as expected. You can see all my raycasts hit everywhere where the box collider is. And so what I had to do is kind of annoying. I've never ran into this before, but I'm in the gaze input module at the cast ray from gaze function. And normally it just says pointer data dot pointer current raycast is equal to the first raycast in the raycast result cache. So in other words, it did a raycast and it's saving a list of everything that the ray hit into this raycast result cache, and it's setting the current object to the first thing that it finds. And so I wrote this section, and it says if the pointer data's current raycast game object, so in other words, the first thing that the raycast hit, if it's not equal to null, so we need to check that because we might not be looking at anything. So if there is a game object at the raycast position, check to see if its name is VR main, because that means that it's the raycast is hitting itself. It's hitting the VR main player. We never ever want that to happen, but I don't want to move the VR main to a different physics layer because I want it to interact with the floors, the chainsaw. I want it to interact. I don't want it to be on a different layer. So if you've hit that and it's the first object you've hit, then check to see if the raycast result cache is greater than 1. We know that it's 1 because the raycast hit at least one thing. It hit the VR main. But if it's more than 1, in other words, the raycast has hit the VR main and it's also hit something else. In this case, at first it hit the VR main and then it hit the chainsaw. Then the pointer data current raycast, we don't want to find the first one because the first one is hitting the body. We want to get the second one, which is the chainsaw. So that's you get that by saying result cache 1 because 0 is the first thing. And I guess the difference between saying find first raycast like that and just saying that is this could return null if it didn't hit anything. And I guess calling find first raycast won't return null if it didn't hit anything. And if the result cache is not greater than 1, so it's only 1, and we know it has to be at least 1 because it hit VR main, then just reset the pointer data so that there is no pointer data at all. So long story short, I added this to gaze input module cast ray from gaze function so that it checks to see if the ray hit the player itself, and if it did, it goes and it tries to look for the second raycast result, and if it doesn't find that, then it just totally resets the pointer data so there's no pointer data at all. And so with that code here, you could see that it's fixed the bug where my raycast was somehow hitting my VR main's character controller and it was not letting me select the chainsaw. So now if I were to select the chainsaw, nothing happens because I need to go to the chainsaw and add a event trigger, and on the event trigger I'm going to do a pointer down and we add pickup object. There we go. Pickup object, and then we say pickup object move to player's hand, so that when we select the chainsaw it'll move into the player's hand. And it looks like I am gonna have to do minor adjustments to the position. So on the hand position for the chainsaw, we are going to adjust the position here. I think the Z will have to go forward. So 0.5 on the Z, and that's it. So this is the hand position, 0.5. So we didn't accomplish a ton of stuff today. Actually, I mean, we did. We populated the house. We got movement. We're interacting and picking up objects. But what did happen today was a really weird bug I've never run into, where the ray was hitting the player's character controller, and now we've modified the gaze input module to fix that. So we're able to pick up the chainsaw, and I need to chop this couch into pieces. All right, you guys, this is going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned tomorrow for more when we chop the couches into... No, I'm just kidding. All right, see you later.